Hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Did the music play?
No, so I was just saying it's a little quiet in here. Let me turn on some background music.
There's no intro music. It was just a graphic. Okay.
That's all right.
Hopefully, I wonder if the block person will come back today.
Oh, I don't think they can.
Oh, really? They're permanent. The ban is permanent.
Well, I tried to find them after last time to see if they could still interact with me other ways, and everything is banned. So I was like, okay, I
Yeah,
guess I won't worry about that.
good.
Yeah, for some reason, y'all, I
We
can't.
have our suspicions who it is, but we don't need to maybe go into that.
Yeah. All right. This.
Okay, forget about the music for now. How are you? Oh, there it is. Oh my gosh.
All right.
All
Yeah.
right.
Busy. Been out, door knocking today. I'm out
Oh,
just
wow.
every day in this crazy, crazy hot weather. But it was really cool. I was out in my neighborhood today. Getting to know even more neighbors and chatting them up. And I came to a door that was pretty exciting for me when she opened the door and she looked at my pin. She's like, "Oh, I already voted for her." And I was like, "You
Cool.
voted for me?" She's, "Oh, it's you? Okay."
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then I was like, "I got to give you something." So I gave her
Mm.
my button that I was wearing.
I have not voted yet, but I got all of my information in the mail.
There you go. And when are you
So,
going to get that in by, Jonathan?
well, I'm voting on August 5th, right
Okay.
here.
There you go.
I've got my sign. I put it out front every day, out in front of the house.
I saw it when I went to not Porch Fresh. I went to Art on the Ave. So I
Yeah,
walked by your house and saw the sign. I
had
was
it out all day at Art on the Ave, and I think that there were a lot of people walking by. So
like, yeah, yeah.
I
That's where
didn't
the parking was.
I didn't go as far as putting the balloon man out, but I did the sign. I have to explain my gear today because I've just been seeing too many Stanford people around town, and it's bothering me.
Really?
Well, we Cal people have a beef with Stanford.
Oh, see, I didn't know.
Yeah, it goes way. I think it's even a little deeper than Cal UCLA because it's obvious that Cal is a better university than UCLA. Nobody needs to even argue that. But because Stanford is just so unbelievably well funded and all of that, I think we have a beef with what is it, the Cardinal or whatever they're called. Anyway, so I keep seeing Stanford people around. So today I decided that I was gonna, represent my undergraduate education and
All right.
go full Cal,
We won't hold it against you.
Golden Gate. Why would anyone hold that? I mean, it's a great public university.
I'm
Well,
kidding. I'm kidding.
I mean, we do have that over Stanford is that we are at least a public, university.
People are UW all the way around
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
great. I'm not anti UW, but no, certainly no one would claim that University of Washington is at the same tier as Berkeley. If they would claim that, then I would welcome a debate. But okay,
Maybe that's our next conversation.
yeah. After the election, man, I don't want to step on people's toes here. Okay, so you have been out canvassing. We have 2 weeks until the primary. Have
Crazy.
you voted?
Yeah, I dropped it off. Was it yesterday? It,
Okay.
that was an interesting experience. I wanted to get a little shot of myself voting for myself, and
Yeah.
it was awkward because there was somebody sitting around watching. But we did it. We got it in. So
Did somebody take picture?
I took a little selfie because I was trying to
Okay.
be like nonchalant about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you haven't posted that yet, or at least I haven't seen it, right?
No, not yet.
The only thing I've seen is the endorsements keep rolling in.
Yeah, yeah. So those have been around, but I haven't been doing my job of letting folks know who's
Ah,
endorsed me. So yeah, every day we're announcing another endorsement that's we've had for a while, but we just haven't let folks know.
yeah, great. So even though we're not renting gaudy billboards at car washes, people are still endorsing you and people are still voting for you. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
It's great. Okay, so let's get down to we since we have 2 weeks, we don't have a lot of time to just chit chat. We got to get into some tea. So, um, I think from talking to people out and about, because I talk about whenever I'm talking to anybody, I talk about the election and what's going on. It just
Same.
seems, sorry,
It's the same.
yeah, same, yeah. It's important, but and I think everybody has a sense of the importance of things in this time period. But I don't know if people, and this includes me, understand like what's at stake in this particular election. And by saying that, I mean this: like what there's a lot of like misunderstanding and just not knowing about what Tacoma City Council actually does, what decisions they make, and why it matters to somebody living on State Street.
Yeah. So I think I was in that same boat. A couple of years ago, it was like, what do we do to fix these issues? And city council wasn't even on my radar because I didn't quite know, that how the city functioned. And I think that's the same boat that a lot of folks are in. But um, going through the charter review and then doing political science and stuff in school has kind of led me now here to understand what the city council does. Um, and it's basically, you know, so there's what they're supposed to do and then what they're doing. But what they have the power to do is they have the power to set the city budget when it comes to what we're putting towards infrastructure or programs. They have the power to decide what happens with how folks are employed around the city, what rights they have as workers, who can work for the city. Um, they have, they're basically in charge of all of the folks that work for the city, including the police, including um, the school district is its own entity, but we have they have a say in just about all the things you can think of around the city that affect your daily life. And a lot of times you don't think about, hey, who's in charge of making the decision of where this sign goes, or where this roundabout is, or if this street gets their potholes fixed. Or it could be as mundane as that, or it can be as big as, hey, let who chooses how we vote in this city. So it's all everything in between.
How often does the city council meet?
So weekly,
Wow.
yeah. So every Tuesday night. So they have different sessions. So there's on Tuesday evening or afternoon. There's a study session and that's where you're going to hear them kind of talk about like the things that they're going to vote on in their evening meeting at 5 o'clock. And so, for the average person to know what's going on, you kind of have to spend a lot of, you have to listen to or attend both of those meetings in order to understand.
Is it paid?
So our city council is, and it's basically paid as like a part-time position. And we were trying to change that on the charter as well, because that kind of limits who can run for council. You know, a lot of the times we see people running for council who are well off and don't need, you know, the funds. And so it's okay for them to have part-time pay in this role. Or we have people, you know, committing part-time work, giving part-time energy to issues that need full-time support. And so
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, when I was at Cal, a lot of my peers would take internships over the summer, and I could never take one because I had to work like an actual job that paid real money, right?
Yeah.
So it is interesting how the way that a job is structured dictates what kind of person can actually, I mean, it sounds like common sense, but actually in these particular cases, it actually really is relevant.
I think so. You know, most of the folks on council now, either they have somebody else who's helping kind of support them, or they have a spouse that makes enough so that they can do this, and that's not everybody. So it's not as inclusive as it could be.
Indeed. So on a Tuesday early evening, how does like a big issue like housing or something, let's just take housing, like how does that issue show up actually show up at a city council meeting? Can you give, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but can you just kind of give an example of like, because everybody's concerned about housing this, housing that, housing da 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 da, but like, you know, how does it show up at a city council meeting so that you guys and so like can do something about it?
Yeah. So it's important for like folks to understand how they can know what's going to happen at a city council meeting. And that, you know, there's an agenda that's set that's supposed to be released, or by law it has to be released. I can't remember the amount of time, but it has to be released before the meetings, so people can see what is going to be discussed, and if they deviate from that at all or plan to deviate from that at all, they have to do like a whole motion to do that, and it can't just happen. So usually you have at least an idea of what they're talking about, but usually the way that things get in front of city council is either with the example of housing, you have our planning commission, which is usually the ones who take all of the requests for you know, different permitting and all of that, and then changes to the city, or things that, you know, as far as zoning goes, or all of those issues surrounding housing. They deliberate on it and kind of come to a recommendation, and then that usually is what gets presented at these council meetings. So it's not necessarily the council members coming with like their research. They're referring to what's been given to them and to making decisions off of that. So there's that, and then there's, you know, as far as the other parts of the meeting, there's public comment. So if you're going to comment on anything, and if you see that there's a housing topic that's coming up and you want to say something, you have to do it in that meeting. Like you can't see something that was on like last week's meeting and then talk about it this week. It has to be on that agenda, usually for folks to talk about it, unless it's a community forum, which happens it's either every other week or once a month. I'm not quite sure, but then you can talk about anything at community forum.
So I'm sure that there's overlap, but is there difference between like what the mayor does, what the school board handles, and then what the city council does?
Yeah. So in Tacoma, there's not a huge difference between what the mayor does and what the city council does. The mayor is practically like another member of the council, because she's what some folks, or I'll say not just she, whoever's in that position is considered what they call a weak mayor. So they are basically another voting member of the council. In a strong mayor, they would be separated out in that, and have kind of like an executive position, similar to like how we separate our legislative and our executive and our judicial branches, right? But and that person would be the mayor would be the executive. But yeah, in Tacoma, there's not a huge difference. So they vote similarly to like everyone else on the council. They have a lot of times, what they say is maybe weighted more heavily, but their vote counts as another vote. And then the school board is almost like a council for the schools. So it's its own kind of entity. Same with like the parks. The parks have a parks commission. So if you think of, okay, the city has a city council, you can think of almost like the parks having its own council and the schools having their own council. They're just called different things. And so the schools handle all the school budget and the curriculum and, the positions and how many, what staff positions they have. That's all the Tacoma School District. And from what I've gathered, a lot of the time there's not a whole lot of overlap in, working together on those different things, even though, what our kids are doing has a big impact on what's happening around the city. And so I would love to see more of a collaboration between all of those three different departments.
Okay. So right now we're kind of in a space where the chief of police is interim, and people, I think so, aren't we? Like, I think so.
Yeah.
So it's Patty Jackson is the interim.
Yeah.
So how does the council play any role in selecting or the process of arriving at the new chief?
Yeah, so the chief is technically a city employee. And so they're put mostly under I don't know if jurisdiction's the right word, but the purview of the city manager. And so it's the city manager basically appoints our chief of police. And so we're going to have an interim chief, and also we have an interim city manager. The next council that comes up, whoever we get as the city manager matters even more so, besides them having control over a lot as a city manager, because they are the ones who are going to appoint the chief of police. And so that is what the council has a say over, is who we put in as the city manager. Yeah.
And that's a pretty important position. I think, isn't it?
It is. So if you can think of, probably a lot of the things that people think our mayor does, the city manager is actually doing. So they usually come up with a budget and come up with, what programs the city will get involved in, and go over the policies, and that it's the council's position to direct the city manager as to like, hey, we need more of this or more of that. But the city manager is the one who makes up these things. And so it's important that we have somebody who has a real pulse about, what is happening in the city and where things need most of our attention. And, where our money's going, if it's working, if we need to move things around, if we can cut here, change this. And I think that's important with the next city manager, is that we have somebody who really understands Tacoma and isn't just pushing things that might be normal and safe, because that's what we had a lot with this city manager. But we should be pushing things that, hey, this hasn't worked. So we're going to try something else, even if it's new. We can do these things. So as long as we have a city manager, we definitely need to care about who that person is.
I mean, but the chain of events could be that if you have, and we're ultimately, I'm talking about why this election is so important. But if you have a city council that, on paper, seems balanced ideologically, but in actuality, because candidates, what I've seen in this particular election is some candidates are coming off, putting themselves out there as progressive or left leaning when they're really not. So then you get a council that isn't balanced, that's actually kind of leans to the right. Then when it comes time to get a city manager in place, then the city manager that gets hired is going to be someone who not necessarily leans right, but who is approved by a council that leans that direction.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that the police, it's like a domino effect.
Yes.
Of
Yes.
governance, right?
Yes. And there's been different issues with some of the chief of police in the past, but the council, once they're in, it's very hard to do anything about it. One, because they can't just normally kind of like go and talk to the chief of police, because it's not their employee, it's the city manager's employee. So there's this like chain of command. So the city manager, if we have one, again, it's just like so important to get the right person in that seat. So we have to get the right people to vote the right person in to that seat.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to housing a little bit. I saw, by the way, so I'm teaching a class at the you'd think I'd know what the abbreviation for the place that I'm teaching a class at, but it's TCC, is that right? Tacoma
Community college.
Tacoma Community College. And I was thinking about this campaign, your campaign, and housing on Tuesday, because I came out from the building that I was teaching in, and across the street there's this huge development building happening, and it looked like it was going to be, businesses on the bottom and apartments, and essentially housing, on top. And it looked to be more than 50 units. Like, it was a big building. So I don't know whether that was a city initiative or a private thing, and I didn't really follow up on it to check it out. But it got me thinking about sort of decisions that are coming up that affect how people live in the city.
Yeah.
Right? When structures get built or don't get built in certain areas, it really affects like the ebb and flow of the city. So, I know you think a lot about housing. So what are some decisions that you know of that are coming up for city council that are going to affect how people live here?
Yeah. So something to kind of, I guess, keep in mind too when it comes to housing. The city council isn't going to necessarily say, "Hey, put this type of housing here," or like build eight homes here, or build, what you just say, a 4-story, 5-story apartment complex here.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is you have folks who want to build, and they apply for their permitting and their whatever else they need, and then the city approves that, and they can't just kind of say, "Hey, I don't think this should go here," and like deny somebody a permit. They have to go by whatever the code says that they should allow. And so it's important to have folks that pay attention and make sure that the code says what we want it to say, so that we when people submit something, we could say, oh, no, we can't approve this because that's against the code for this area. But if that's not in place, then we can't say anything about it. So whatever was built across the street from TCC, no matter if it's good or bad, it was, somebody applied for it and it was in the code to be allowed to be built there. And so it's being built. Whether, and a lot of the times we have developers come in from out of city or out of state or out of country even, that, their whole goal is profit, right? And so they're going to create the least expensive thing possible for the greatest return. And whether that fits into the neighborhood or is best for the neighborhood, that's not the main concern of those folks. And so my solution to housing comes from, instead of like a top down type of thing where, hey, these people made these houses and they're trying to find people to get into them. There's different ways that community can work together to build housing that actually works for us and includes spaces that we, will utilize and will benefit the community. And one of those ways is community land trusts. And that's what, I'm working right here now in Hilltop with Aya Community Land Trust to get one of those started here. So, but it's
so is that what One Tacoma plan is? What is that?
No, so the One Tacoma plan is basically our comprehensive plan for what Tacoma wants to do or should do, and then over the next, I believe it's 25 years, over the next decade or so. And that covers everything from housing to, transportation to economic development. So housing is in there. And me and other housing advocates in Tacoma pushed for community land trusts and social housing to be a part of that plan, because those are the types of housing that we need. It's not just these luxury high, buildings that people can't afford to live in. We need to be creating housing that actually makes sense. So that is now part of that plan.
Well, and that people can afford, low-income people can afford, because more and more people are in that category now. It's not just a euphemism for poor people. Like, low income is actually kind of becoming the norm.
Mm-hmm.
But, some of like those developments that are on Martin Luther King and I want to say 9th or 11th, I can't remember which, like, and the builder of those, one of the builders of those, I used to talk about it with him all the time, Lester Pogue, who's since passed away. We used to talk about how, like, well, these are low income buildings, but a lot of time people can't afford to pay the rent because the people who had them built want profit out of it, essentially, right? So it's a real sort of like clash of ideologies that goes on a lot of time with these structures.
Yeah, and what community land trusts and social housing do is take that kind of out of the equation. They're models that they're profitable to a point where, hey, we're going, we might have rent or we might have a maintenance fee or things like that to take care of the building, or pay for the mortgage on the building. But anything above that is going to be put right back into the building. It's not going to be for profit. It's going to benefit either that particular housing structure, or another community land trust or social housing project. So it takes the profit, that motivation out of the equation. So we're actually going to be doing what is best for people first.
That sounds, I can't wait to hear you Well, actually, no. Let's talk about it now because we're running out of time. So, how does your position on that differ from the other candidates who were running for this position? Because I can imagine, you can confirm or deny or complicate this, but I would imagine that a more pro-business candidate wouldn't be as interested in the ideas that you're talking about now.
No. I know that, we've made leeway when it comes to like the tenant bill of rights, and folks being able to feel more comfortable with having stable housing if they rent. And I think that that's a good indicator. Like the candidate's position on that is a good indicator of how they might position themselves on these other housing ideas. And I know that there's been, a lot of the ones that, besides me in that race, are against the tenant bill of rights, and don't believe that it was a good thing or that we should continue. And that's another thing that's going to come up over this next term for whoever's in council is going to go over that, and it's in danger of either being completely thrown out or becoming with removing all the teeth from it. So another reason to pay attention to who we're voting in this term.
Yeah, this is about so much more than just potholes in the street. Like, I'm like everybody else. I don't want, huge potholes in the street, but in order of priority, though, that's not the most important thing in my world. So, things like tenant bills of rights is one of the more important things
Yeah.
in my world. I'm a tenant.
Yeah. And so we have other folks, for one, I haven't heard any real ideas as far as like what they would change when it comes to housing. Like I've heard a lot of them say yes and agree, we're in a housing crisis, we're in a homelessness crisis, but I haven't heard really ideas as to how to address those things, especially when it comes to housing, besides what's already been done and hasn't been working. So that's a big difference there. So
it just runs so contrary to what the newspaper, the justification for what they said about sort of endorsing was that, that some were talking substantively about issues, but the thing is that just saying, hey, there's a housing crisis, when I'm on city council, I'm going to work to help that. Like that's not that's not talking substantively about an issue. That's
no,
just saying something.
no, and
No ideas there.
These aren't new ideas either. Like Tacoma's done multiple studies that have shown that community land trusts are a great way forward. They just haven't done a whole lot with them. And we know that there is a gap in housing for people under 80% AMI, but there was no plan to address that until people started pushing for social housing as an option. And so it takes the folks that care and know what they're doing to push for those things, but we also need people in the seats that are going to put those as a priority and actually realize we need different solutions.
What kind of like conversations, if you're like on the city council, do you like talk with other city council people during the week, or I don't know, does that happen? Because I'm the reason I'm asking is I'm wondering like about accountability. Like when I think of like how Congress works or whatever, like they see each other in the hallway or at the gym or at whatever like eatery that they're going to, like it's sort of an insular world. But because currently the city council is a part-time thing, Like, how do you hold other council members accountable, and how do you talk, like get into it with them?
Yeah, so that's something I'd like to change a bit, because right now, you see my daughter sneaking in the back. Right now, you have those meetings that are out in front. So you do have like the study session where you do get to hear a little bit about their discussion back and forth. Um, and then at the other meeting in the evening is basically just voting, and you don't know quite like how they got to that vote or what happened. But even in the study session, there's a lot of executive session time where none of that is done in front of the public, and so there's a lot of things discussed behind closed doors. um, and then it just kind of comes out, oh, this is what we decided to how we decided to vote, but we don't have an idea of how they got there.
Mm.
um, so there's a little bit of,
Mm.
by law, they have to be able to, if they're at a quorum, if there's at least, I believe, 5 of them,
Yeah.
it has to be a public meeting. Like, they can't talk about that, but on their own. But if there's less than that, or if they could say, hey, this one said this, what do you think? There's a lot of ways to kind of get around that and talk about things.
So if you're at Bar Rosa having a burrito and you see another council member, like, are there things you can't talk about with them, or you can talk about them with it? You can talk about anything.
Yeah, you can talk about whatever. And we, to a certain extent, you need business to get done, right? And so you need to be able to talk about certain things. But I think when it comes to like the issues that are clearly not being addressed, and the issues that the public really cares about, and then you come up in front of them and make these decisions without bringing the community along or getting input, or that's an issue. And so there needs to be, not everybody cares about, like we talked about, like fixing this pothole on this road. So I don't think we necessarily need to watch their conversation about that. But there's other big things that we care about, and they're not being addressed, and it's turning into a lack of trust with our local government, with any government, but especially our local government. And we see that coming out with how people are voting. People with the last, not safe streets, was it safe streets? The streets initiative that was on the ballot, people didn't vote that down because they don't want their streets to be fixed. They voted it down because they didn't trust that the money that we already have was being spent properly. And that's because they don't see the whole process. They don't understand how these decisions are being made, or if they're being made well.
Well, okay. So what are some of is there any, I imagine like there's a whole list of things that the city council sort of has decision making over, but are there any things that somebody would be surprised to hear the city council kind of, what is there anything that most people don't realize city council like controls, or maybe controls isn't the word, but kind of like has purview over, let's say?
Yeah. I think just
like, you guys don't control when one of the things that annoys me about this town is that all the cafes close at like 6 p.m. and it's like,
right?
it's really anti-working class. I don't understand it. Maybe city council can do something about that.
I mean, they can, not, and it's oftentimes it's not an issue of like regulation, but it's an issue of, it's a matter of promoting and incentivizing these things. Like,
That's
hey,
what I was going to say. Is there an incentive to there's a way to do that?
There's ways to do that. There's people, the city council can set incentives on, bringing in certain industries or bringing in certain types of businesses. And you can think about that, what you're bringing up. You're saying it's not too important, but I think it is, because it's a safety issue, right? Crime happens when folks are around, and um, people, it is not active. The block is not active, and so a way to address that would be having the businesses open a little later. And how can we encourage them to do that? Maybe there's um, a grant or something, or a program that these businesses could be involved in, so that they can test out whether it's worth it for them to be open later. There's ways to do this, and so yeah, the city council is involved in stuff like
Oh,
that.
that's great. That's the kind of interaction that you want to have with people in city government. I mean, I think, for me, third spaces are so important. And like, there's a parent group right now, even at our school, that has been wanting to find a place and a time to meet. And which is obviously sort of one of the building blocks of community, right? Like, here we have this group of like-minded parents. We would love to find a third space to meet, have coffee, relax, maybe pull out some checkers and talk about whatever the issue is that we're concerned with or want to deal with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
People work.
Yep.
Places close.
And it's,
right?
Tacoma went through a rough patch where you could maybe understand why businesses didn't want to stay open so late, but that's not who we are. Like, we've grown past that. And if we continue to act like it's still in that position, then we're going to get that same result. And so I think we need to put a little faith in our growth and what the people in Tacoma are capable of, and wanting, and they'll take care of the things that they want, and do make a little bit of changes that way.
Yeah, when we first moved here, we thought that I was like, maybe it's because the sun goes down so early. And I don't know, but it turns out that there's like a socio-political reason for it. So, okay, yeah, that's a good example of a way in which, if you do have a city council member who actually has an open door policy and does listen and doesn't just, get elected and then, you never hear from them again. That you can actually make your world that you live in a little bit better. I mean, but that brings up the question. So how does a regular person, whatever that means, but let's just say that there is such a thing as a regular person. So how does a regular person then know what the city council is doing, and know how if each individual city council member is literally doing their job? Like, how does that happen? How do we know?
The only way to really know for folks is that they have to be keeping up with what's being said and done at the city council meetings, and that the average person does not have time or the patience. I'd add that in, to follow along with what's happening, because city moves slow when it comes to a lot of things, and so it can get a little boring at times. And so these aren't just hour meetings. Like, these are 3-4, just depending on what the subjects are. But we have the tools to get people more educated or more knowledgeable about what happened in that past meeting.
What are those? Because I have to say that most of the people that I talk to at Porch Fest, they're not tuning into those meetings and listening. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So what tools do we have?
Yeah, so I don't think we currently have tools.
We don't.
I think we're capable of creating them. I think,
doesn't that serve, like, the fact that we don't have tools, that really, really, really serves the status quo in a way that is probably not discussed.
Yeah. I mean, we have millions of dollars literally going toward like TV Tacoma, or things that folks aren't really tuning into anymore, instead of putting that into, hey, let's do a podcast that covers briefly what was discussed at the city council meeting and what's on the docket for next time. Let's do a late night tea that lets people know, hey, these are the hot topics that are being discussed right now.
You're talking my language now. Let's take $150,000 or so and put it towards late night tea. Get the host, incentivized.
Right, there we go. We need to pay Jonathan for his work.
I'm looking for work, so come on, there we go.
But I also think I did an interview with Grit City magazine the other day, and just learned that there's a reporter that Matisse is taking kind of note of what's happening, but how many folks in the city know about it, and so it's I think it's up, the city can promote stuff like that, like, hey, check in here, or like, help Matisse do her job.
It's so interesting. A great name, by the way. But the irony of that is that we all have devices in our hands all the time, which give us information constantly. So there's a gap there, because yeah, sure, nobody turns into like local TV channels right now. Like, the only reason I listen to a few of the local radio stations I do is because my mom's car is like a 2002 Camry, right? So I just, going through the whole cassette Bluetooth, it just, sometimes it's a pain. So I just end up listening to local radio, and it's great, by the way. All of our local stations, I wouldn't want to be put on the spot by giving like the call letters, but they're great. I love what they do, but like some of it maybe doesn't translate to most people like now, but we do have devices that are constantly, like, it's one thing you can always ask is like, well, do they have an Instagram, or do they have a whatever? And I think you're doing a really good job of reaching out to people. Most of the people who I talk to at events, fundraisers, etc., are following what you're doing from your social media pages.
Yeah, and that's been, I've been trying to, I guess, set the precedent of how I would be in office through this campaign, and how transparent I've tried to be in, what I'm doing and how I feel about things and my ideas around things. And I plan to keep that going after I'm in office.
Well, that's the most important part. And I would urge people to ask whatever candidate they're even considering voting for, which is, it's pretty easy. Like, what is your accountability structure? Like, take a look at what their social media platform looks like, and you can ask them. I mean, if you ever need an excuse to slide in somebody's DMs, just say like, what are you planning to do with this account if you're elected? Are you going to give us weekly updates? I guess it's just a way that it's so easy to bridge the problem here, which is letting people know if you're doing your job, and A, that's A, and then B, like, what's going on in the city. All of those things, if a person just stays on their social media account and lets those things be known, that's a way that isn't so clunky. Like, oh, well, I didn't turn into my Tacoma television this week, so I don't know what's going on. But yeah, but if you checked your Instagram feed, I'm sure that it popped up in some way, shape, or form. So that's how I learned about your endorsements.
Yeah, it's easy to learn about what's going on with the candidate and what like you said, what they're working on. I don't think a lot of folks know what our current city council is. Each of them has kind of their own like passion projects and what they're wanting to change, but I don't think a lot of folks know. And so when that happens, it's both people don't see what they're doing, and so they can't hold them accountable, but they also can't help. They can't say, hey, I really like what you're doing. Let me see how I can contribute or give my input to this thing. And that was kind of another idea that I had when I'm in office is, I have my platform on housing, on jobs, on the climate. I'm not just saying these things. I want people to be able to track what I'm doing. And hey, she's not quite to this goal, even though she said she wanted to be here by this time. And so people can again hold me accountable, but then they also see what I'm doing. And I know my community, they jump in when they know that there's an opportunity to jump in and help. And so if they know, hey, she's struggling a little bit here with this initiative, maybe we can help her in this way. And so I want that to be a visual, quick, like just check in, this is what Latasha's working on, and go from there. It's not that hard.
It's not that hard, but I think it's really important when in an election, and I suppose in any American election these days, they're all about identity politics. But this election in particular, there's sort of a strange identity politics thing going on because for position 6, as we've talked about before, there's a couple of progressive candidates, if not more than a couple. There's a couple of Black women, if not. Is it more than a couple, or is there just 2? Is there 2 or more?
In my race, there's 3.
There's 3 women of color, but
and then
are there 3 Black women?
No, women of color.
Right. So there's 3 women of color, 2 Black women, 2 or 3. I would say there's only 2 progressive candidates, but I'm just that's just me. Maybe we'll get more into that next week when it really counts. We'll sort of try to bring it home for people who are not really sure. I mean, I think So anyway, what I'm saying is that in an election, a primary like this, where it may be very tempting to vote along the lines of just identity politics. Like, I mean, of course, I'll be the first one to say, like, if there's a Black candidate in the race and there are no other Black candidates, like, I'll check them out, but I will still most likely usually vote for the Black candidate. Mm-hmm. But in this particular election, you can't do that, A. And B, there are some real ideological differences amongst the candidates.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I worry about that because we want folks. There's a shared experience, right? When there's a person of color, and that's kind of why you might gravitate towards them, because you think they understand your background and care about the things you care about. But there's the saying that all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Right?
Yeah, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right?
And I think that rings true. There's in any situation in the past, whether you consider like the civil rights movement or there's always been those ones who've just been out for themselves, or were could perform as almost like a token and get ahead of themselves and kind of leave everyone else behind.
They say the right words, and then those words essentially mean nothing. I have a long laundry list of those types of people, but in the civil rights movement. But we don't need to go there today. But I think but it also does happen a lot in leftist and progressive politics, and there's got to be some sort of saying along those lines too, because you can call yourself a progressive, you can say all of the bullet points about being a progressive, but if you don't have an accountability mechanism, then you're not really progressive. And also, there's no way for people to really check in on that.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what's been the difference between, like you said, real progressives and kind of more moderate candidates that first like to paint themselves as progressive, is there's a level of transparency with real progressive candidates, because we're not worried about what we look like, or our future career. What we're doing is trying to do what's best for the people. So we're trying to be transparent, um, regardless of if some of that transparency could be damaging to ourselves, because we're doing what's best for the whole, instead of just trying to get ahead.
Yeah, I just find it odd that one of the candidates I saw today when I was running errands, the slogan was like something like proven results. And my question is, well, what results are we talking about here? I don't know if that's like spilling too much tea. Maybe again, we'll get into that in our final Tacoma, in our final late night tea before the primary. But like, it doesn't it see it there's a sort of seed of not being entirely genuine when you say proven results, but your track record is not known.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's tough to. I'm not going to say it's hypocrisy, but it starts edging up to it.
Yeah. Or it's not known, or it's incorrect.
Yeah.
There's that too.
Yeah, there's that too.
So yeah, it has to go deeper, right? People have to look a little bit more into what these folks are actually doing. In my case, I don't think you have to look that far. Like, you can see from a quick scroll on my page what I've been doing, what I'll continue to do, even if I'm not elected. It's not a game for me. This is my life. So
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be elected, so let's not even go there. But but maybe you're right in the sense that like maybe the effort that you even have to put into looking into somebody should be counted as a metric. Like, if somebody, I mean, nobody's a completely open book. We all have, but if somebody is basically a decent open book type of person, and they have a track record, and they're willing to show you not just what they've done, but maybe what their shortcomings are, how they're going to improve upon those, what they plan to do. That person to me is infinitely more electable and attractive as a candidate than somebody who just says, well, hey, my results are proven, folds their arms, looks the way they're supposed to look exactly, and, has a little more money. And so people think that they're the only game in town.
yeah. Well, Jonathan, there's a reason why I haven't been watching a lot, I guess, closely my opponents, social media,
Me neither.
but I don't think I haven't seen a video yet. I haven't seen, kind of like a more candid.
Oh, really?
I haven't.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a reason because,
That's crazy work.
with
Really?
me, the things that I'm saying are not just, they're not just buzzwords. These are things that I care about. And so you could ask me any question, and it's going to, be in conjunction with what I've said I'm going to do, or what is on my website. I don't know. We don't know if these other folks, if it would be the same, because they're not willing to talk just openly about supposedly these things that they're passionate about.
Now, wait just a minute. So what you're saying is that not only are, from what you've seen, and I haven't looked, so I'm going to take your word for it, the other candidates, particularly the ones who are, particularly the ones who we're talking about. It's a little déclassé at this point. Maybe next week. Those candidates don't have, not only do they not have like videos of them speaking to issues, but they don't have a late night tea weekly podcast. Like, that's what you're trying to tell me?
Can you believe it? Yeah, I mean, this is next level. I think that this just shows our commitment, right? But
it sure does.
even just a couple, videos about, they're speaking to the issues and speaking to what you're going to do. I have not. I just haven't seen it.
That's crazy work. I can't even believe that. I just assumed that they would be. I mean, that just because it kind of just makes common sense. Like you
You
have
would
to,
think so.
yeah.
You
Huh. I mean, I
see,
knew that they wouldn't be as like creative as you are on your social media stuff,
oh,
but I
stop.
I just no, but I, because that's like a unique characteristic. But I assumed that they were making sort of boring, bland, like scripted videos, and they're not even doing that.
Not that I have seen.
Wow, wow.
What you
Well,
can't, you could see the one thing that we were all on together that they, you can't get away from was the League of Women Voters Forum. And you could see, who was speaking from the heart and who was reading a note very confidently, and who maybe was just kind of going off of, memory and what they've been trying to say. So look for that if there's no other video available.
okay, I will. I will. I think that we should because we're at this point we're kind of holding back on talking naming names. Let's take a pause. We're gonna name names next week a little bit, not in like a you know a way that's inappropriate, but still, I think at a certain point you have to talk about differences.
Yeah.
And so I think, the last Tacoma tea, the last late night tea before the primary would be a good time to actually just lay those out.
Yeah, a comparison. I think that's good.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, it sounds great. It sounds just like what we've talked about tonight is basically how everyday people can be part of the conversation and be a part of decisions that go well beyond like potholes in the street.
Yeah, it
Um,
really matters. Like,
yeah,
I don't, this election, there's so much at stake, and it's whoever's in the seat is going to be in there for at least 4 years, and if they're the incumbents usually get reelected, so that's 8 years. That's the next 8 years that this person is going to be in that seat making these decisions, and so we need to make sure we get the right folks in there.
so important. And we don't. I mean, we don't. We live in such a tumultuous landscape. Even 8 days seems like a long time. So 8 years is a lifetime in today's politics. So yes, it is really, really, really important to pay attention to more than just a billboard that somebody bought at a car wash, and actually sort of dial into. And I think it's happening. I think people are getting a little more savvy than that. And I think the Trump administration and that phenomenon of neoconservatism has really activated people towards paying more attention at a cellular level.
Yeah.
And not just going for sort of, a flashy billboard or something like that.
I hope so.
So,
I think
I do.
if there is a silver lining, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so next week we're gonna talk about purple politics and people and all that good stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Have a great night.
You too, and have a great week. I know you're going to be just incredibly busy, but try to also, revel in the process, because this has been a real transformative thing for you, I think.
Absolutely. Oh, and if you're out this weekend, come see me at the Mosaic Festival.
Where is that? That's news to me. What's going on?
Wright Park. It used to be called something else, like I think it was Ethnic Fest or something like that. But this year they're trying to be politically correct with Mosaic Festival.
Mosaic. Okay.
But it'll be cool.
The new PC, The new politically correct world.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So Mosaic Festival, are you going to have a booth? Are you going to be hanging out or what?
I am super happy and grateful. I'll be sharing it so long Chun has a booth and he's willing to share it with some of the other candidates with similar values. So I'll be there and a couple of other folks.
I'll bring my chalkboard here.
Yeah. Bring the chalkboard, maybe the floating man.
Really? Balloon Man's welcome?
He's welcome, yes.
You'd be shocked at how many people love that thing.
I love them. They're so cute.
That's great. Okay, Latasha, be well. Thank you for doing everything that you're doing. And I will see you this weekend. I will for sure come out, and I will also be checking my social media to make sure I know what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Sounds good. Thanks, John.
Okay. Good night.
Night.
Good night, everybody.